Take two. I guess that was a practice run. Universe said I could do better.
All right, people, not bad. Let's do it again. Close the curtain, kill the lights, and action.
Hey guys, and welcome back to New Earth Alchemy. Doing our best to fix the mess that was given to us and find better ways to live. So today's episode is about cyclical living, which I definitely recorded yesterday. On the last day of Mercury retrograde, and as it was going out, it took the episode with it. So, let's do this again. Better. So, we touched on cyclical living a few episodes ago, and I stayed focused. Good job, me. And I told you I would come back to this subject and do a whole episode on it. Well, let's start with talking about how the world has been set up to not take into account the natural fluctuations of the human body and the world we live in. And because the natural fluctuations are not really a part of our culture and society in any way, other than like the changing of the seasons, we ourselves don't take into account the natural fluctuations either. So I have a lot of people beating themselves up. Most of us beat ourselves up because we're inconsistent, or what we feel like is inconsistent. But as I've said till I'm blue in the face, the only consistent thing about anything ever is change. Change is the only consistency. So we can't really beat ourselves up for being inconsistent when consistency isn't really a thing, not in the sense that we think it is anyway. We're not the same every day. We're not the same month by month. We're constantly changing. There's fluctuations in our energy levels, our moods, our bodies, literally everything, both internal and external. So there's fluctuations going on around us all the time as well. And thinking that we should be reacting the same all the time, doing the same all the time, is a losing battle. We cannot win a game of chess pretending that it's checkers. We're out here trying to move the pieces the same way all the time, when our pieces they're not always the same, and they move different ways, and they need to move different ways. And the terrain, the board, is always changing also, which is why you probably have spouts where you start to feel like you have things figured out just for everything to flip on you, and now you feel like you're back at square one. Like, oh, I'm gaining traction, skirt. Crap. And that can lead to a lot of emotions, which really isn't fair to you or to anybody else, because that's not how the world works. Everything is full of natural ups and downs, fluctuations, really high highs, really low lows, and everything in between. We need that contrast in order to understand what we need to understand. You can't truly know happiness unless you've known sadness. You can't grow unless you're met with challenge. If everything's the same all the time, you're never going to change. Nothing's ever going to be different or get better unless you're forced to do different or get better, right? We're creatures of habit. We fall into these patterns and we just stay there until we have no other choice. And often these changes come on very quickly, very suddenly, and they're almost never good, okay? Some sudden changes can be good, most are not. So if we're stuck in this perception of reality as consistent, we're just setting ourselves up for failure, okay? Again, nothing is consistent. The only consistency is change. I have a lot of people come to me looking for tips on consistency, and I definitely have other podcast episodes completely dedicated to just consistency. Instead of focusing on that, we're going to focus on cyclical living. Savannah, focus. Sometimes it's really hard for me to focus because everything really is all connected. So moving on to cyclical living and how there's fluctuations around you all the time. And if we can hold on to this mindset of the patterns and the cycles that are going on around us at all times, within us and externally, then we can have a much smoother ride. You know, we can ride the waves instead of drowning. If you're in the middle of the ocean and you're being pummeled by waves, you have to flow with it up and down. And the more you fight it, the more you're going to exhaust yourself, the quicker you're going to drown, for sure. Life is the same exact way. There are natural fluctuations within you and around you at all times. And if you're aware of them, you can tune into them, you can see them, the patterns, because they repeat themselves over and over again. Then you'll have a much easier time and you won't be so surprised and jarred at the sudden changes when they happen and when they come about. So we know about the changing of the seasons, right? That's the easiest one to kind of grasp and hold on to, the cycles of the earth and the seasons that come with it. Females obviously have a very obvious, cyclical nature to them every month. Men also do. It's not as obvious, but they also have a fluctuation in hormones and changes that happen throughout the month. And in connecting our bodies with the seasons, there is seasonal eating that we should be doing, which is pretty innate once you know it's a thing and you're aware and you're paying attention to your body. It makes sense that when it's hot and heavy outside, you crave more cold, lighter meals. And when it's cold and light outside, then you crave more heavy and sustainable and like soup, like potatoes. It just makes sense once you start thinking about it. But most of us don't think about it because we've never been positioned to think about it. Society and culture's never mentioned a single thing about any of this, and we no longer have to live in, our ancestors did. They had to live in sync with the natural cycles of where they were and what was going on then. So because they had to grow their own food. And nature knows, nature provides. So what is in season is what you need the most. For example, in the fall, like late summer, early fall, oranges are in season. Vitamin C, that's, cold and flu, school's starting back. Things just make sense. What kind of foods do we have available in the winter? It's the ones that store for a really long time, right? Root vegetables, which, in the winter we have less access to sunlight and outdoorsy stuff. So seasonal depression kicks in, right? We feel light and airy because that's the energy that's outside. That's the energy that's around us. In the fall, winter times we're going to talk about Ayurveda for a second. Ayurveda has Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. For a second here, it's going to sound like we're all over the place. We're not. All of this is really hard in the beginnings because it's all of these concepts that you're trying to piece together that you've never even heard of any of these concepts, right? Like, what is Ayurveda? Kapha, Vata, Pitta, what are you talking about, Savannah? I'm fixing to start talking about astrology, which is really going to throw you for a loop also. But it's all fractal patterns. So underneath it all, once you figure out the archetypes, once you figure out the patterns, it becomes easier to assign the patterns and the archetypes, the elements to the thing that you're trying to figure out. The season, the problem, how to counteract and balance what you have going on. Because all of these cycles are simply different representations of the same things. Once you break it down, once you figure out the representations, the archetypes, the elements of it, the pieces, it becomes easier to see where you have balance and imbalance and how to counteract the imbalance to bring balance and a sense of harmony. So, coming back to ancient Ayurvedic texts, we have Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. So in the fall and winter, it's very, like at the end of summer into the fall and the beginning of winter, okay? Because nothing's sectioned off the way that the Gregorian calendar is. Everything bleeds into one another, right? So moving into fall and winter, we have Vata energy outside. Everything's light, everything's airy, and this can lead you to feeling very light and airy and ungrounded yourself, in which case you need to, or very dry, in which case you need to counteract that and bring balance to it by adding more Kapha, which is warm and watery. I am trying very hard not to lose you in all of this. So, okay, the elements is what we're talking about. Fire, water, air, earth, ether, okay? And everything breaks down into those elements. Everything. And this is what Eastern culture's been trying to explain to us, and what Western culture's been very like, what about? That makes no sense. That's so woo-woo. What are you talking about? Well, Kapha, Vata, and Pitta. So Vata is air and ether. Kapha is earth and water. Not related. And then Pitta is fire. So in the fall, in late summer, fall, and early winter, we have Vata weather, which is dry, like the air, and kind of ethereal. This is when we have Halloween, right? Which is also called Samhain in the pagan holidays. And I'm fixing to talk about those in just a second. Moving into spring, we have spring showers, bring Mayflowers and all that. That's earth and water energy, which is Kapha. And then moving on from there, we have Pitta, which is fire. It's very hot, it's very dry, and then we just cycle back around. So if you're following the cycles of the season, then you more understand how to care for your own needs and your own body, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that. In the winter, when everything's dry, you're going to want to hydrate more. In the summer, when everything's hot, you're going to want to hydrate more. You have to counteract the imbalance by adding more of what is lacking during this season. So coming back to the pagan holidays, which Christians, don't be afraid, okay? We're not worshiping anything other than nothing. We're just tuning in to the seasons is all this is, okay? It is not sacrilegious at all. You can absolutely be Christian and still celebrate the pagan Wheel of the Year holidays, which is because, fun fact, a lot of the Christian holidays were adopted based off of the pagan Wheel of the Year holidays. For example, Christmas was originally Yule, which is Christmas. Samhain, that I mentioned earlier, is actually Halloween. It's the same thing, okay? The same exact thing. It's just the pagan Wheel of the Year holidays came first, and we're more aligned to nature and the happenings of the earth and what was happening during that time of the year. We have like the fall equinox, the summer solstice, the winter equinox, like all of these are when night and day are fluctuating. The equinoxes are when night and day are equal, and the solstices are the midpoints in between those. So, like the days get longer all the way up to the solstice, and then they start getting shorter. And checking in with these holidays can really help you figure out the patterns that you're experiencing in life. I hated holidays. They felt superficial and shallow, and I couldn't stand lots of obligations and stress. I hated them. Could not figure out why we were doing the things that we were doing with the holidays until I discovered these Wheel of the Year holidays, and then I was, okay, so this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be celebrating the abundance that we have available to us right now. Gratitude. It's not just for Thanksgiving. We should be celebrating gratitude and practicing that all of the time. It's about being together and connecting with the people you love, your community, the earth, everything around you. And it just really, really helps get back into the spirit of what these holidays are supposed to be, what they were before they were commercialized and honestly used for agendas we're not going to get into. Looking up these aspects of each of these holidays will help you figure out these patterns. And I have a podcast episode and a blog post on every single one of them so that you don't have to do the research, you don't have to do the work yourself. You can just go look at them, listen to them. I have meditations that go with them and stuff to help you connect deeper with the meaning and how it translates into your life. It's just an opportunity for introspection and figuring yourself out, because the more you can figure yourself out, the better you can do that, and the more fully, the better, easier time you're going to have in life in all areas. Which brings us to astrology, because astrology also follows these same exact patterns, okay? And again, I said earlier, it sounds like a lot of different separate pieces. It's not. It's all different interpretations of the exact same energy that we're experiencing and when. For example, around Halloween, that's Scorpio season. Scorpio is known for being deep, depth, mysterious, a little dark, in tune with the spiritual, the other side, the veil, which is exactly the same exact aspects that you get with Halloween, which is Samhain. And then you come over here to the spring and you get Taurus, which is abundant, vibrant, fertile, all the things that are associated with spring. And then in the middle of winter, you have, say, Capricorn, which is quieter and more inwardly focused and contemplative. And this goes around the whole year. And then, I do the whole series with the manifesting of the moon, because the moon fluctuates in the zodiacs. So if we're tuning our intentions and our goals to each zodiac when the moon starts and the energy rises. I know it's a lot. I'm so sorry. I try to make this as easy as possible. Please let me know if you have questions at any time. Anytime you want me to go more into depth about something. I'm covering a lot on this episode through the cyclical living, just because it's a broader topic, but I do have episodes where I've broken down each of these things. Probably not the Ayurveda and the Vata Kapha Pitta stuff. I need to go back and do things on those. I do have blog posts on those, but I'm not sure that I've ever done podcast episodes on them. But if you're aware of all of these natural cycles and the fluctuations that are going on around you, you can better plan and interpret and coordinate your movements to that which is going on. So when we talk about the manifesting of the moon stuff in the zodiacs, we're setting our goals and our intentions that align with that zodiac for the month, because those are the aspects that are going to have more natural energy to flow with. So you're not fighting against things, you're just using the natural fluctuation of energies that are already around you to work smarter, not harder, in manifesting and achieving your goals. So for example, Virgo season, you want to focus on more of personal health management. I hate the New Year's resolutions crap, okay? That was not set up for our ease of success. The first of the year, January 1st, when everybody's setting New Year's resolutions, what do you actually want to be doing at that time of year? Go ahead, think about it. I'll wait. Most of us, at January 1st, in the dead of winter, okay, there's a reason it's called dead of winter. Nothing's growing, nothing's going on, everything's flatlined, and all we want to do is hibernate. Yes? What a terrible time to set goals and try to hit the ground running. Instead, if we're following these natural fluctuations around us, we would want to set our goals and intentions in spring, with the beginning of Aries season, when the beginning of everything popping up and starting to grow, because that's what's happening for the world at that time. And we're growing things. The winter should be time for rest and introspection, contemplation, planning, journaling, figuring things out in your head, not really doing much as you're thinking and just sitting back and observing and analyzing. That's what you should be doing in the winter. And then hit the ground running in the spring when you have the energy, the natural energy to do so. It just makes so much more sense, y'all. Does it not? So the zodiacs, astrology really, really, really helps break things down into more tangible aspects, more digestible aspects, because life across the board is a pretty big subject, right? We have 12 zodiacs, each of which is a different archetype and carries different aspects and different energies with it. So if we're tuning ourselves to these as they come around the calendar, then we're able to work on every single aspect of life one at a time with the energy that's around us. And it sounds hard and complex, but I promise you it's not. It just kind of gives you a place to start, a framework to work with. And then you really don't have to follow it that closely, because once you start getting into the natural patterns and understanding the natural patterns, everything just kind of starts happening innately and automatically without any effort from you whatsoever. And that's what we want, right? We want to fall into that natural flow state and stop struggling, stop fighting the friction that we have around us, finding the path of least resistance so that everything can be easy. And I'm telling you, this is the way to go, is cyclical living, following the natural fluctuations with the earth, but also with yourself, okay? And keeping a journal is invaluable for this type of stuff, because different things are going to affect different people at different times. And you have to be aware of what works for you personally, which is why, following the wheel of the year traditions, those holidays I was talking about a second ago, they are about checking in with yourself and the world around you, noticing what you see, what you feel, the energies, like what resonates with you during this time. And that's going to help you start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. We're not going to all interpret all of those things all of the same ways, especially since we live all around the world in all of these different places. So what someone in Russia is experiencing in May is going to be so much different than what someone in, say, Australia is going to be experiencing in May. You got the southern and northern hemispheres. I can't cover it all for you. I can only go over like the broad idea of what to do for you, and then you have to do the work yourself. Now, you totally can contact me and we can work through it together, but when I'm talking to all of you like this in this type of platform, I can't break it down for each individual location. It's up to you to figure out what's going on in your location, what the energy is like there at this time of year, how it relates to you, how it's affecting you, how it's affecting the people around you and your environment, what kind of things are growing seasonally right now in season for you at your local farmer's market, which I guess again comes into that hyper awareness of the present moment and what's going on. We only have 24 hours in a day, roughly 30 days in a month. Things change quickly. So if you're not paying attention all of the time, you've missed a season already. You've missed an opportunity to nurture your mind, your body, your soul in the way that it's craving right now. So if you're having a hard time, then look around, and are you living accordingly to the energies around you, or are you trying to fight against them and struggle against what you feel things should be? Are you completely disregarding the natural fluctuations and flow? Because honestly, the vast majority of us are. We don't even take these things into account because we've never been presented with these ideas before. So be easy with yourself, be gentle with yourself. It's going to take time to figure out. But that's okay, because we're here until we're dead, right? We have the rest of our lives to figure things out. And that's the time frame that we're working with. Until we're dead, the rest of our lives, however long that is. We're not looking for temporary changes. We're looking for progress and growth consistently, bringing that back around town, so that we can build on that and manifest abundance, dreams, goals, all the things that we want, right? It's building blocks. We're building it on top of the other things. We got to get our solid foundation going first before we can build the walls, before we can decorate, before we can paint. Everything, it gets more complex as you go from an easy standpoint though. Okay. I don't want to scare you with the word complex. It seems complex in the beginning until you get your basic framework set out, and then you start understanding it, and then it becomes very innate, very natural, because this is the way we were always meant to live. This is the way our ancestors lived. So take that, digest it, Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you need help, yada yada, all of the things. Please leave me a 5-star review if you got benefits out of this, if you like me, if you like the stuff, if you haven't done that already. And I will talk to you next week. I love you so much. Thank you for making it to the end here. Namaste.